What's up, guys? Your boy Dabuz here with a nice buzz cut and some nice buzz facial hair. Looking nice, I know. I hope these jokes didn't make you guys cringe or turn the video off. With that said, stage striking. What is stage striking? Most of you guys probably know what it is, but for people who don't, it's the process of removing stages from the neutral pool to figure out where to go to for game 1. Most rule sets have an order of player 1 strikes 1 stage, player 2 strikes 2 stages, and player 1 strikes 1 more stage, leaving 1 stage left. And most rule sets have a list of Smashville, Final Destination, Battlefield, Pokemon Stadium 2 or 1, and then either one of Kalos, Town, or Lylat. I think Lylat's the best fifth neutral, but a lot of rules just use Town, which is fine. And then some use Kalos, which I think is almost a ban-worthy stage, so, you know. Striking comes before the character choice, and this is so you don't get screwed over, where it's like, I strike the PS2. Oh, you're going Snake or Robin PS2? Well, this is bad for me. And why do we strike? In theory, we strike because we want to get the most neutral stage possible for game 1. Because if both players get rid of the 2 worst stages, then the third best stage for each player should be the only one available for game 1. However, this works in theory because we assume perfect information. In practice, though, there is imperfect information. You do not know what your opponent wants entirely, and the same goes for your opponent knowing what you want and don't want. So, you want to use this part of the game to trick your opponent into striking stages that you don't want and leave stages that are favorable for you. And you can use striking to get a lot of information about the stages your opponent wants for banning, counterpicking, even an idea of how the matchup's going to play in their head. And generally, if you have 3 more stages in the neutral list that you don't like, then consider that the matchup may be bad, consider you might want to play someone else, because if you basically have to go to a disadvantaged stage, game 1 of your opponent knows what they're doing, that's not good. That's actually awful. Now, let's talk about striking first. In my opinion, striking first is an advantage. Because most of the time, there's an obvious stage where you just don't want to play it. It's like, I'm fighting Fox, I don't want Battlefield. I'm fighting Snake, I don't want PS2. I'm fighting Olimar, I probably don't want Final Destination. So, knowing that, it's hard for your opponent to get good information out of it if you, know the obvious strike. And then you get the advantage of seeing how player 2 strikes before making an informed decision on the last strike. So you have the most knowledge at the end, and unless you mess up, you theoretically give up the least amount of knowledge. And yeah, and there's so many ways to use your opponent's striking to your advantage when they're striking 2 stages at once. If they strike them at the same time, you can know they kind of like or dislike them equally. If your opponent strikes one very quickly and the other one very slowly after thinking, you can see, they hate that stage. Or if you see the order even of, my opponent striked this stage, then this stage, you can kind of get information of that. I'm not going to say how to use information exactly because it's up to your discretion depending on who you're fighting. But just know that by seeing your opponent striking 2 stages, you can use the stages they strike, the order, the timing, even the way they look when they're striking to your advantage. Sometimes I fight someone and it's they obviously get rid of stage 1, and then stage 2 they're really thinking about it, and I can see there's 2 stages they want to strike, and I can use that to my advantage to know if I have to counterpick, I counterpick to whichever stage of those 2 they don't ban, because they're probably also banning the stage they immediately striked. And then, since you're striking first, you can try to use this time to force your opponent to strike a stage neither of you like. So Lylat's generally the example here. Most people dislike Lylat for some reason. Most people will strike it at some point in their set. If Lylat's a neutral stage, just play 4% of the time. But you can use this to your advantage to let your opponent strike it. I think one of the worst mistakes people can do is strike Lylat first if neither of you likes it, because then you're basically giving up your free strike, and your opponent says, I was going to get rid of that anyway. Cool, I don't got it now. Time to outplay my opponent in the striking war. And then, of course, at the end, you get to just pick your best stage no matter what out of the stages your opponent gives you. So as long as you don't mess up the first strike and the matchup isn't bad, that should be your favor. Now, however, by striking second, you do get some advantages. You get to see what the most disliked stage out of the entire 5-stage list for your opponent is, which is valuable information if it's they get rid of Battlefield, and we have Battlefield, Yoshi's Island, no, Yoshi's Story, and say Lylat, because Triplats. So you can use that to your advantage. And there's also a chance your opponent just makes an error, because player 1 is making a strike with the least amount of knowledge. It is possible they don't know how the matchup's supposed to play or the stages, and they might get rid of a stage that you don't want to play on without even realizing it. Or they might get rid of a stage that surprises you, and you might have a lot of information going into that strike. So, player 1 has the advantage, they can also screw up, and that's what's cool about being player 2 for striking. And remember, your opponent's discretion for the starter stage. Now, when it comes to stages like Lylat, it's kind of a game of chicken, because I said player 1 could generally avoid that, and then player 2 has to strike Lylat if they don't want it normally. However, if you know you can leave your opponent with 2 stages left, one that's a stage you both don't like Lylat, and the other one that you just like, you can tell your opponent, hey, we're going to a stage you both don't like, or a stage I'm liking. So That's a really cool aspect of it if you don't get rid of Lilat and you're willing to take the risk of you both going to a stage you don't like, which most people won't do. And otherwise, there isn't too much to work with if you're striking second, because most of the time you're going to be striking your two worst stages, and it really comes down to how you strike those stages. Because I mentioned this when talking about the first player strike, so I won't reiterate it here, but basically, changing up the speed, the order, the timing, even your look and confidence when striking these stages can influence your opponent's counter picks, bans, even their last strike. And then that's really it for striking. There's like not too much to talk about, obviously, but it is an important part of the game. And I always try to ask my opponent, like, to ask myself, what is my opponent thinking when he makes the strikes? Did he strike how I expected him to? Did he not? Did he make a mistake? If he did, does that mean he has another matchup? And even like after a match, generally people will ask like, "Hey, what'd you strike?" Because they want to know what you strike before to use that knowledge for their bans or the counter picks. And that's all I have to say for this video. Hope this helps you guys out. That said, peace out.